I'm Natasha Chilingarian.
I'm Michael Ogden. This is Shared Accounts with CU Times. I've been thinking about The Price is Right lately. The show originally aired back in the 50s, mid 50s. As a 70s kid, I remember being so excited when the contestants could win a new car. And the first car, I looked this up recently, Natasha and Zach, first car they ever gave away was in 1972. It was a Chevrolet Vega worth $2,700. It was a crappy car. But Natasha, Producer Zach, I do want to play a quick and topical Price is Right-ish game with you, but it deals with the price of grocery items. Been in the
Really?
news. But I found this great grocery price tracker CBS News put together. It's like a historical tracker. It's great, of very specific items. Now, I'm just going to ask you what you think the cost of this item is, and you can bid on it higher or lower, whatever. You know how Prices Right
Sure,
works.
sure. Oh, yeah.
And we're winning nothing, but all these prices, I will tell you, are as of December 31st. Okay.
December 31st. Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's been a little bit.
You know, what would be even funnier is if we have somebody come travel in time forward from 1972 and have them guess and then hear the answer and then see their head explode.
Yeah. You know what? That is a reality show I'd watch if that
Yep.
could happen. Okay, but I'm not doing eggs, just so you know.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I was thinking, what? Really? Okay,
Eggs
that's
are
insane. Okay.
insane. They're crazy right now. Okay. Natasha, Producer Zach, what do you think the cost right now, the average cost in the United States is of a half gallon of milk? Natasha, what's your bid?
$3.99.
Zach, what do you bid?
Across the country,
Yeah.
$2.
No, Natasha, you win. It's
Okay.
$4.10.
What?
Yeah.
Well, I guess do I get, okay, I buy a half gallon every week and I get ultra pasteurized. It's like
Okay.
$6. It's like $6.
Woof.
I know.
Okay. It's
Okay.
410. Okay, so now, both of you, what is your bid for processed American cheese? A pack of that.
Like Kraft singles,
Sure.
I don't know. $3.79.
Okay, $3.79. Zach, what's your bid?
It's Price is Right rules.
Sure.
$3.80.
You win, Zach. It is $4.98.
Oh boy. Underestimated there.
You have not gone over a price.
So
That's
that's you're not supposed to go over? Is that what Price is Right
closest
was?
without going over. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Okay. And so Zach pulled the old I'm going to bid $1 more
Right, yeah, real smart.
trick. Yeah. Okay. Here we go.
Price is Right.
What do you think the cost is of 1 pound of ground beef?
$9.99.
Okay.
Oh.
Natasha?
I was gonna go lower. I was gonna say $6.99.
You both went over. It is
Oh.
$5.61.
Oh, okay. Well, we should be eating more
The
beef. I didn't
average.
realize it was
I don't know what kind of beef Zach's eating. I'm a vegetarian, so I don't know these prices.
right. Yeah.
Okay, we have two more. The next one, 1 pound of bacon.
Ooh.
Zach, you were the winner last time, so you're up.
$6.50.
Okay, Natasha.
$6.51.
Yeah, there you go. Ding,
All
Natasha
right.
wins. It is $6.92.
Okay, that's not bad. Yeah, my
Yeah,
local
you guys
store,
are
it's like
pretty.
it's at eight or nine. I thought it was like 8 or 9. That's what
That's
last I
great.
saw.
Okay, last one. Natasha, you're bidding first. The
Yeah.
cost of a half gallon of ice cream.
Ooh, really depends on the ice cream, right? Because there's specialty and then there's just
Yeah.
like
Just think vanilla, I guess. I
just
don't know.
basic. Okay, half
Yeah.
gallon, you said?
What's your bid?
$5.99.
$5.99. Zach, what's your bid?
I'll go with my bacon guess and say $6.50.
Natasha, you win.
Oh.
$6.27.
All right. Okay, that was a good guess. Yeah.
That was very good. Natasha, Producer Zach, come on down. And welcome to Shared Accounts with CU
Oh,
Times.
that was clever. There you go. I like what you did there.
Yeah. Coming up, we're chatting with Troy Stang. He was president and CEO of the Northwest Credit Union Association before it merged with the Mountain West Credit Union Association back in 2022. He's now president and CEO of the combined league, Go West Credit Union Association. First credit union league to represent 6 states. Troy joins us. We go through a lot of stuff, a lot of advocacy, and just a lot of stuff. I don't know, that's the best way to say it. It was a long and beefy conversation. We enjoyed it. First up, taking a break from the week with our co-host, Natasha. Hey, Ann.
Hey, Ann.
Good job on Price is Right.
Oh, thank you. Well, I know it was interesting. We were chatting kind of on the side afterwards with Zach, and we have quite a discrepancy here. Me being in California, him being in Kentucky. Quite a
Right.
difference in the prices. But I was just thinking. I guess my brain was just on expensive because that's been the name of the game
It
lately.
served you well.
Yep, I guess so.
Okay, Natasha, what'd you watch this past week?
Yeah, so I didn't watch anything really notable as far as movies or TV, but I did, if you could indulge me
Mm-hmm.
for a minute, did want to give a brief update on the world of bald eagle live nest cams.
Oh, please.
If people listening think this is ridiculous, please feel free to tune out for a minute here. But anyway, if anyone knows me and has followed me on the pod, they know I like watching bald eagle nests, like live streams. There's a bunch of them around the
Uh,
country. So I'm just going to and it has been quite a riveting season so far. It's
yeah.
like a soap opera. So a few highlights. So the big thing that happened in Southwest Florida, these parents had two eaglets hatched or about a month old, doing so well. The two of them were so cute together, best of
Mm-hmm.
friends. Unfortunately, about a week and a half ago, they both died
Oh.
from bird flu. So they were actually taken in for
Oh my.
necropsy, and it
Mm-hmm.
was avian flu. So that's
Oh,
concerning. It's very sad. I think it's because bald eagles, they eat other birds. So if they were to
yeah.
eat like infected bird, anyway, that's been
Yeah.
sad. I cried. It's like I was like,
Aw.
how many times am I going to cry this season?
Mm-hmm.
I'm better now, but yeah, it was kind of sad for a lot of the people that watch them. So that happened. On a happier note, there's a couple in Northeast Florida named Gabby and Bo, and they have one baby that is doing well. And Bo is
Great.
a first time dad. He, I guess, screwed up the last two seasons, but this season his instincts kicked in and he's being a
Okay.
great dad to this baby. So they're fun to
Uh,
watch. The Jackie and Shadow couple, that's kind of my home
oh, yeah, I
nest. They're
remember
in Big
them. Yeah.
Bear. Yeah, out in Big Bear here on the mountain. They have 3 eggs again. They
Mm-hmm.
last year they had 3 eggs that never hatched. So I'm not holding my breath again. I don't know,
Oh,
but they're still really fun and entertaining to watch. So usually have them on like all day in the background.
wonderful.
Finally, and this is probably the most fascinating thing that's happened. There's a
Okay.
nest in on Catalina Island off the coast of Southern California. There
Mm-hmm.
was a couple, Thunder and Akacheta. They had 3 babies this last season, all did great. They all moved on, fledged. Then, about a month ago, they caught on camera Akacheta, the male, got in this massive fight, like a territorial fight with another
Okay.
male eagle or a group of male eagles, was all covered
Yeah.
in blood.
Ooh.
So they didn't know what happened to him. He was just like resting there all bloody. Then the camera went down for like 2 weeks because of the winds.
Oh.
Camera came back up earlier this week and he's gone. So we don't know if he
Oh.
died or if he like flew away.
Okay.
The female has a new mate, has moved on in. They were there, they were seen mating. He's been on the nest and they were able to track who the new male is because he was
Uh-huh.
banded.
Okay.
He's only 4 years old, and his name is Makeo, and the female is 16. So it's kind of funny with the age difference. She's got herself a young man.
Huh. The way you just described everything, I kind of forgot you were describing eagles.
Right?
It
Yeah.
really
Well,
sounded like just characters from Big
they
Brother or something.
are.
I don't know.
They are. Yeah. And that's what's funny. It's almost human like just watching this stuff.
That's
So anyway, okay.
adorable.
I digress. So,
No,
what did you watch this past week? Anything that you want to
I
point
just
out?
want to bring up this really fun 1967 French movie I watched. That's the snobbiest sentence I've said all week, so I apologize. But it's called Les Samurai.
Ooh.
It's just kind of a French spy movie
Hmm.
starring Alain
Okay.
de Lyon, something like that.
Okay.
He
I
passed away last year. He's a wonderful French actor, but it's just kind of a super French stylized, great hats and coats, spy stuff, and had a
all right.
really fun time. Les Samurai.
All right. Well,
I very
haw,
much
haw
recommend it.
for the French.
Oh, I'm a spy.
Right. Well, I'm part French, so I can make fun of the French. It's not. It's
Yeah,
like,
I'm nothing. I don't know what I am. Okay.
well, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was good. Let's
Okay.
move on, I guess.
Let's move on. So we've got a very beefy interview that we did with Troy. Three things I'll mention that stood out to me. He talks about one of his past roles was actually serving with the George W. Bush administration as senior
Mm-hmm.
staff to the US Treasury, and this was in the years leading up to the Great Recession. And he said, "I left with a real fire in my belly." Because during that experience, he talks about how he felt a little bit like the credit unions were out of sight, out of mind in
Mm-hmm.
those discussions there in Washington. And then he
Yeah.
goes on to talk about, kind of what he went on to do to really perfect, I guess, the message about credit unions and
Mm-hmm.
all the great work he did after that. He also presents a very incredible origin story of how he became passionate about credit unions in his career.
Yeah.
That has to do with a piece of farm equipment in rural Minnesota.
Legit, if I could interrupt just for a second, as he was
Yes.
describing the story to set the scene for listeners, it legit was sounding like the origins of like Clark Kent on the farm, you know, for Superman. It was really kind of
Yeah,
riveting,
I could see that.
actually.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah, and it was and I didn't know anything really about his own background, so I was really, really interested, and I thought that
Yeah.
was a fun story. But most fascinating of all, he reveals that he actually played guitar. He was playing in a cover band with a extremely famous musician, and I'm not going to say who it is.
Nope, don't spoil it.
Nope, I'm not going to spoil it. So yes, I'm sure all of you listeners will want to know who that is. So keep on listening. We have all that coming up next. Joining us in the virtual studio today is Troy Stang, President CEO of the Go West Credit Union Association. Hey, Troy, welcome to Shared Accounts.
Thank you, Natasha. It's great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. So, Troy, we obviously have a lot to talk about here. But first, let's talk about the fact that you are currently CEO of the nation's first six state credit union league. I know we haven't actually had a chance to have a formal interview with you since the Go West Credit Union Association was officially formed in 2022. So it's been like 3 years now. So to start us off here, can you just kind of tell us how have you been adjusting, I guess, to the newly formed six state league as a leader? So what have like some of the biggest changes been for you?
Thank you, Natasha. And the formation of Go West was really a transformational moment, not just for the association, but really for credit union advocacy as a whole. Across our region, we have almost 300 credit unions so focused on their members and communities. And in 2022 is when you referenced Go West was really formed with a end in mind of creating a regional advocacy powerhouse that really blends that hyper local work credit unions are doing on Main Street, that local advocacy in every state legislative body, with really leveraging the resources of the credit unions and the associations across our legacy associations and really enhancing our national influence. And since it's really allowed us to have just this strategic and future focused work and really hone in on the wins, the tangible wins that are making differences for credit unions day in and day out. And that makes a difference. If I think back to the history of our legacy organizations, each of the leagues historically we're doing an amazing job, but the issues facing credit unions are coming at a faster pace. They're more complex. And to harness the resources that existed in each of these individual state leagues or the smaller regional leagues really has allowed us to increase our advocacy resources. Thinking about advocacy and in the credit union movement over the years, I think we originally, and I've been in the industry for several decades, when we thought advocacy 30 years ago, we were thinking, get to know your local elected official. But you think back to eighth grade civics and advocacy and influencing government at all levels, really back to the eighth grade civics of you've got multiple branches of government. Advocacy is not only influencing the legislative or statutory environment, but on the regulatory side and the judicial branches of government, such a huge opportunity. And it's no secret, as you collect the voices of these 300 credit unions across these six Western states, you also have a footprint that includes approximately 10% of the US Senate.
Hmm.
And at any given time, you're going to have that sort of congressional representation having significant influence on the public policy environment for financial services. So while that hyperlocal advocacy cannot miss a beat, having that influence at the federal level truly does make a difference. We've long thought in the Go West spirit of doing things that it's one thing to ensure everybody in public policy understands who we are, how uniquely different we are, what place in financial services we really fill. And of course, you got to do that to defend yourself, but you also do that to help modernize and make relevant the framework of what credit unions can do. But if you keep on looking on that hierarchy of our advocacy voice, especially as credit unions have been successful in growing market share, our voice today is influential in shaping how financial services is led and the public policy environment treats it from a place in the overall financial institution public policy landscape. And that's critically important.
Right.
Troy, you mentioned a couple of things I want to follow up on. One, you mentioned eighth grade civics a couple of times. Do you remember your eighth grade civics class?
Oh my goodness, yes. And I even remember Mrs. Sederberg, the teacher.
Mine was Mr. Smith. You mentioned it twice. I was like, oh yeah, Mr. Smith. I don't know if I liked the class or not, but anyway.
I didn't know I was going to like it. I ended up loving it.
Right.
And it caused me to be extremely curious about how we, the people,
Yeah.
we are the government,
Yeah.
local, state, and national level. And so there's a sense of responsibility that we take to our work yet today.
Oh yeah. What was your teacher's name again?
Mrs. Sederberg.
Mrs. Sederberg, thank you very much for giving us Troy. Appreciate that.
Yes.
You mentioned one other thing I want to expand upon too. You were talking about wins. Can you point to some specific wins that Go West has had and its member credit unions have had since you've tied together to combine the Mountain West Association?
Now, first off, with an association that serves a multitude of states, all of our advocacy priorities are nurtured by the local credit unions. So
Yeah.
what's unique in Arizona might be different than what's uniquely the priority in Idaho and vice versa through each and every one of our states. And so the number one thing, again, is ensuring every elected official understands who credit unions are, the real tangible value that we deliver, and the impact that we make on Main Street. So you dial that down into specific states. Just in the last year, for example, in Arizona, we updated the Credit Union Act to allow credit unions to better serve members, including governance changes of how their board meetings can be managed and handled in a modern day environment, and confirming the authority for credit unions to be able to buy the assets of a bank who's wanting to exit the marketplace. Or in Idaho,
Yeah.
really streamlining the operations and helping credit unions better reach the rural communities and expanding credit unions' investment authorities. Or in Colorado, they're ensuring that the merger process between credit unions is modernizing and the field of membership interpretations can be streamlined, again, to help credit unions run more efficiently. We are currently along a journey in several of these states, Wyoming, for example, ensuring that public municipalities can actually deposit their funds at a credit union.
Oh yeah.
And these are the things that in the modern day, credit unions are the local financial institution. And whether it's
Of course.
consumers, small businesses, or the public entities see us as a viable choice in financial services. And a lot of our advocacy is pushed through a filter of ensuring commerce can flow very easily in the respective jurisdictions. Another particular bill that we're working on in the state of Wyoming is modernizing the titling process. We took a look at it, and you look at the volume of consumers and small businesses in the state. In some of these jurisdictions, upwards to 50, 60, 70% of the population is a member of a credit union. So you think about the cars, the homes, the businesses, the titled property. We see those transactions. We help facilitate those transactions, and we see where the state processes can potentially be streamlined so that commerce can flow much easier in the respective jurisdiction. That's good for the economy, it's good for the state, and obviously keeping credit unions relevantly at the table.
Very good.
Now, could I just follow up on that just quickly? So you talked about specific different items you focused on in different states, but do you feel like since Go West became Go West and has become bigger and stronger, has that helped with these specific state level issues? Because I know I was just thinking back to, when NAFQ and CUNA combined, their big kind of why was we can have a more unified voice and we have more impact just like together. Is that something you felt like as well? Just by combining and now representing 6 states, are you able to do a better job in these individual state issues?
I think back to the day that I joined the Oregon Association as its leader and partnering with the team that was there was doing an excellent job, but wearing multiple hats, right? You only have so many hours in the day, and your state lobbyists needed to be the expert lobbyist, needed to be the expert communicator, the expert PR person. And oh, by the way, in the evening hours, you probably had to work on facilitating a conference or a compliance webinar and what have you. Today, in the Go West environment, we have individual state lobbyists assigned to each individual jurisdiction. And they have access to an amazing menu of resources, whether it's those PR resources, research, legal, compliance, bill review. And the lobbyists, can stay focused on ensuring the relationships in the state capitol and the relationships with the local and state administration and the Department of Financial Institutions, or whatever they're called in each respective state, overseeing credit unions. That relationship was managed, and the translation of that relationship to credit unions never misses a beat. So we absolutely have seen the benefit of harnessing the resources, but staying focused on a local cultural approach to each individual state while leveraging the resources behind the scenes.
Okay, great. Yeah, that makes sense. So let's get a little bit more into advocacy and kind of, what's going on since the start of the year, in DC and that whole world. Obviously, we're a few weeks now into the new Trump administration, which has, of course, brought lots of leadership changes, lots of policy changes, and it's been all over the place. So, how are you feeling right now about the environment for credit unions and advocacy in this new world with the second Trump administration?
Yeah, I go back and look through the lens of my personal and professional experience. I started my career inside of credit unions in the upper Midwest, later
Hmm.
worked in the Texas Credit Union League and got really involved in advocacy, and then got tapped by the George W. Bush administration. And as a credit union professional, and one of the first and only credit union professionals ever serving at the highest ranks inside of the US Treasury, I went there pretty excited, thinking, oh my goodness, all this good work of credit unions is really going to be talked about inside the halls of the US Treasury. If you put a date stamp on that, Natasha, it was in the years leading up to the Great Recession. The good news is credit unions weren't talked about in the halls of Treasury because there was plenty of issues with the Wall Street banks,
Yeah.
plenty of issues in mortgage portfolios. We all know how those history books
Yeah.
were written. But yet, I had this angst in my stomach. Credit unions also were not mentioned in the halls of the US Treasury on the
Yeah.
solutions that they provide on Main Street.
Hmm.
We were sort of out of sight, out of mind. And that intersection, that moment in time for me professionally and personally, of course, every presidential appointee, you're done when the White House is done with your job. And I chose to come out of the DC Beltway and back into industry. But I came back into industry with a certain fire in my belly because
Hmm.
we got to do different in how we talk about credit unions. We got to do different in the fundamental basics of the understanding of we are financial cooperatives, and that structure is here for an absolute reason. And it's here to fill a niche in the American financial services environment. And that niche is tied closer to Main Street than ever before. Now I'm going
Hmm.
to get to your question specifically. Regardless of a White House administration, regardless of a congressional seating and swearing in of a new Congress, regardless of a Democratic or Republican or independent body,
Yeah.
credit unions are credit unions every day. And
Mhm.
what we do in Main Street for our members, for our communities, makes a difference. The opportunity and challenge in a new administration is ensuring that we take what we do and push it through a filter, a messaging filter, honestly, in a manner that lands with the leaders that have the gavels, who have these positions. And that doesn't matter if it's a White House, a congressional body, a state legislative body. You've got to make yourselves relevant. And so let me go back to Go West advocacy. We've been working hard to accelerate and elevate the work of credit unions on Main Street. And you're going to hear me go back to hyperlocal.
Okay.
It's no secret, no matter what jurisdiction you're at in the United States, one of the biggest issues is affordable workforce housing. And it is no secret that as we traveled through the global pandemic, we saw this exit of consumers and residents out of metro areas into smaller communities
Mhm.
across America. The gig economy is real. It's an important component of the American economic landscape. And so, for example, in Washington and now in Oregon and in Arizona, we're having conversations about housing and micro enterprise lending. For example, in Washington state, through our advocacy work, over several years, positioned credit unions as being the deliverer of grant resources powered through credit unions by some of the appropriated dollars back in the CARES Act, back in the pandemic, which Congress had appropriated to each individual state legislative body
Mhm.
to really figure out what would help their state the best. And through our advocacy work locally in Washington state, we ultimately positioned credit unions through our Go West Foundation as the singular source of distributing these dollars to Main Street, to micro enterprise businesses across the state of Washington. It is and was the only place that these dollars, it started with $9 million and then later grew to $11 million of micro
Mhm.
enterprise lending capacity. That's being regenerated over and over and over again through savings secured loan loss reserve backing on these programs. In other jurisdictions, we've worked on affordable housing, again, positioning credit unions in partnership with their local communities, their local cities, counties, to find ways those city jurisdictions can help with zoning issues, they can help with land acquisition, they can help with utilities, plumbing, those sorts of things, working with developers to get out of the ground faster at a lower cost. Credit unions' role in that is zero down payment options. Down in Tucson, the Tucson credit unions have come together with us in our Go West Foundation to provide a 0% down payment program where if the homeowner stays in the home for 5 or 7 years, there's no PMI, private mortgage insurance, and with hopes that the consumer builds that equity in the home. So this laundry list of real solutions on Main Street are extremely strategic, very intentional, because it gives us what we need to talk about in the advocacy arena at the state level, at
Yeah.
the DC environment, and in this new administration, now talking about these things in a manner of creating jobs, creating communities, rejuvenating Main Street, and helping small businesses fulfill their dreams. These are messages that sell beautifully in this new administration and this new Congress. And that's what we are excited to talk about.
Absolutely.
Troy, let me ask you kind of a blunt question on a very important topic that we're looking at right now, which is, are you concerned about credit unions losing their tax exempt status?
Listen, Congress and administrations that have gone before the current have looked at this time and time again. And if you look at what's happened in the American financial institution landscape over the years, you have big money center banks in Wall Street serving a special niche and role. You see community banks, you see credit unions. Our charter is extremely intentional. I'd be our first critic, though, that we haven't talked well enough about how we take our structure and leverage it day in and day out to produce the real tangible value to our memberships. We haven't been real good over the years talking about what is the tangible price tag on that value that we return
Hmm.
to our members. And we haven't been really good about talking about the economic impact that we're driving in our communities. And
Yeah.
what you just heard me articulate in the litany of things that we're doing on Main Street, whether it's housing or micro enterprise lending, is strategic and intentional to help us have even a bigger story to tell in a way that's relevant to the public policy environment. If the public policy environment understands and knows how big and how influential credit unions are in driving
Yeah.
not only the household wallet, but the Main Street economic development and the affordable housing,
Hmm.
Yeah.
there's going to be a confirmation once again of why we have this not for profit, member owned cooperative structure
Yeah.
and why it's treated as it is. So, if there's any learning to be had for all of us in the credit union movement, is A, frame our message around the value of this charter, frame this message around the economic, true, tangible value that you're delivering to your memberships,
Hmm.
and talk about it through the impact, the economic impact that you're making in your communities. For those who in the movement who've been around me or have heard me speak, I've been elbowed several times about this new acronym, and it's SVI, structure, value, and impact. And your listeners probably now can go back and listen to this podcast and hear everything that I've been talking about through this lens of how do we take this structure that we have, this gift that we have as a cooperative,
Hmm.
and leveraging it to produce real tangible value to your memberships. And you got to be able to measure what that value is and make the impact in our communities. We are on almost a decade now of using outside economic firms in the Go West region. We're currently using Oxford Economics to really
Yep.
wrap their arms around all the credit unions in any one of our given states or holistically across our jurisdiction to do exactly that. You can sit in any legislative hearing and hear industry after industry, hospital system, college, major tech firms, or employers in any respective community come in talking about their economic value. And that's
Hmm.
exactly what we're doing and how we're leading the conversation. So I think if we do that well, it's the best insurance policy that we have, ensuring we can continue to do it under our
Right.
framework as not for profit,
Okay.
Sure.
cooperatively owned credit unions.
Well, thanks for that. Obviously, we've been following this issue closely as it's been kind of popping up more, and it's good to hear you all have a real good, cohesive, strong message that will be there fighting. So I can't imagine it would go away, but times are strange right now, so gotta ask. Okay, so Troy, let's before we move on to some other topics here, are there any other advocacy priorities for this year that you're focusing on that you haven't mentioned yet? I know you talked a lot about the affordable housing piece, which is important, supporting the Main Street economies and all that. Anything else that you wanted to mention that's a priority for you?
Well, I think at the highest level, again, to that eighth grade civics class,
Yeah.
you've got multiple branches of government. And with
Yeah.
new administrations, and as a former White House appointee, I know there's approximately 3,000 to 4,000 political heads of agencies and advisors that get appointed. And so, in the advocacy business, in the association business, it is almost like having a completely new, fresh audience to
Right.
advocate with and tell our story again. So yes, there's a lot of change, and change can create anxiety, but it's a rich opportunity to again push our messaging through a different filter. At the federal level, I mentioned the 6 states, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Wyoming, Colorado, and Arizona, has about 50 congressional representatives, including about 10% of the US Senate. And just within that audience, we've got Idaho US Senator Crapo, who was the former chair of the Senate Banking Committee, now the chair of the Senate Finance Committee,
Yep.
who, through the great relationship with Idaho credit unions, has long been a supporter of the credit union structure. That Senate Finance Committee is co chaired by Senator Ron Wyden, who is the ranking member of Senate Finance from Oregon. He, too, is a staunch supporter of our credit union structure and tax status. He has said so often. So you take the two leaders in the Senate Banking Committee who understand credit unions, and I would go so far to say, not because of the work Go West and the trade associations, but because the local credit unions have brought them into their shops, have done years of amazing relationship and conversations with these people. And so while they might be taking on gavels in these committees, they don't necessarily need to be introduced for the first time to credit unions. And that list goes on and on. Wyoming's John Brasso is the majority whip in this
Yep.
session in the Senate. Our brand new U.S. Senator from Arizona, Ruben Gallego,
Hmm.
has just joined the Senate Banking Committee. And so I'm rattling these off because this is the influence that has been built locally over
Yeah.
years and years. Senator Ruben Gallego served in the Arizona State House and Senate and then became a congressional, just elected to the Senate. So these relationships are long and deep, and the understanding of who credit unions are. So we need to leverage those. And the administration side, again, all new leaders at the senior leadership will be seated as presidential appointees. It is no secret that we have gone through a cycle over the last 4 years of a heavy hand of regulation, where Washington, D.C. really putting a framework of they knowing best, they setting price controls. And really, it's been a challenge, honestly, to figure out how the heck do credit unions serve their members with such
Yep.
heavy overreach of regulation. These next 4 years, it is no secret, we're going to see a government and every agency that's very much focused on its core responsibilities. And for NCUA, there's probably at the highest level two statutory requirements for NCUA to focus on. One
Hmm.
is the safety and soundness of the institutions it regulates and oversees. That is the exam function. And the second function is managing and overseeing the share insurance fund. Anything outside of those core responsibilities, we are very hopeful will be translated and shed from those agencies so they can get back to their core mission. And that is just one agency. I mean, we can go into Treasury and talk about the CDFI fund. We can talk about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. All of these will have a new lens over them on what's the end in mind, what's the why of these agencies,
Right.
hopefully allow credit unions to do what they do best, and that is serve Main Street businesses and consumers
Sure.
in the best way possible as not-for-profit cooperatives.
And we should maybe ping you, once we do know the future of the CDFI fund, because right now we don't.
The number one issue, if you ask any credit union, and frankly, probably if we did a poll amongst just us here on this podcast, the
Hmm.
number one issue so many of us are dealing with and credit unions are dealing with is the consumer fraud and cybersecurity.
Oh, yeah.
And so you think about the Bureau, the CFPB, and yes, protecting the consumers. But again, every one of us can rattle off a place where a consumer, a parent, a family member, a friend has had a cyber attack, a fraud case, and these losses are mounting to financial institutions. So I think you, again, are going to see a refocusing of some of these federal agencies to a core mission of what's relevant in today's world.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, my next question I wanted to get into, outside of the advocacy piece, outside of regulations and legislation and all that, what are some other things that you think are the biggest challenges just for credit unions today? And I was going to suggest, cybersecurity, obviously a big one, and that can be detrimental to the credit union. I mean, look at what happened with telco was a big one. Obviously, that's California, so not your region. Could you talk a little bit more about that? And is there anything else that's a big challenge right now in terms of, operationally, in terms of technology and all that?
The Go West members through our state government affairs committees have helped us vet out a list of priorities, not only at the state level, but the federal level. And the laundry list is long, whether that's liquidity management, the continued access to the Federal Home Loan Bank for liquidity purposes, for the CFPB, the structural and oversight reforms of that agency. We cannot have the DC Beltway policy environment telling who is closest to Main Street how to run these Main Street businesses. And there's a lot of interest amongst credit union CEOs and leadership on getting back to allowing these boards and management teams and leadership of credit unions to run their businesses in a way that A, they are experts at, B, in a manner that meets the needs. And then you can move into the list of regulatory relief items. We talked a little bit about the fraud, a national privacy standard. And part of this conversation, you can get really nagging on the sky is falling and there's so many things to fix. But we recently had a good portion of our CEOs gathered for what we call a collab, where it's a lot of networking and a lot of thought leadership on how best to serve the members in this environment. And of course, these issues of efficiency and government overreach all surface. But I got to tell you, the tone in the room really also focused on the opportunities and the excitement and the deliberate and relevant products and services that they're offering to Main Street. The optimism really came through in a lot of that thought leadership discussion. It's no secret the credit unions are also in a cycle of extensively modernizing their infrastructure, whether it's core systems, the digital
Hmm.
offerings. It is no secret we're in a cycle of what talent and skills were needed in the last chapter of any of our organizations needs to expand and grow to be able to run and lead these businesses, these cooperatives in the modern environment. So the chase around talent and HR and motivation, the focus on getting stuff done and executing in an environment that our members in our communities are front and center for us. And that's probably the most inspiring thing about these cooperative charters. While there's all this noise around, the regulatory environment and the advocacy environment and cybersecurity and fraud, credit union leaders have their eyes and hearts firmly planted with the members front and center and their
Hmm.
communities front and center. They see the needs, they're serving those needs. The momentum and excitement to do so is there. And we can't lose sight of that.
Okay, well, Troy, let's go back to you for a second and your background because I don't feel like whenever I talk to you, you just have this passion for the credit union movement. It's so sincere and it's very inspiring. But going back to
Hmm.
your background, so you mentioned a little bit about serving in the George W. Bush administration as senior staff to the U.S. Treasury Secretary. And I feel like that's very fascinating. But I wanted to go back even further and find out, because I've never asked you this, what was your very first credit union job in the industry? And was there a particular moment or event that kind of made you decide that you really wanted to focus on credit unions in your career?
My life's dream growing up, I grew up on a fifth generation family dairy farm in central Minnesota.
Oh,
And
wow.
Ooh.
youngest son, I was took over that farm, but I had three younger sisters, and
Okay.
my dad encouraged me, go get an education,
Yeah.
go work in the
Hmm.
workforce. You can always come back to the farm. And I did, went to community college for finance, and I started working at the local credit union. CEO at the time sent me in the back room to put the history of that credit union together. And as I was digging through those cardboard boxes, I found the chartering documents and found my grandpa's name and his brother's in the chartering documents.
Wow.
And I went home to the farm one of the following weekends and asked Dad, did you know this? And oh, yeah, of course, it was common knowledge, but nobody ever talked about it.
Hmm.
And then pulling on that thread of history a bit more, Grandpa and his brothers started the credit union in the basement of a Catholic church because he got declined for a loan for a piece of farm equipment. It got declined at a local bank, and he wasn't going anywhere. Yes, it was 1934. Yes, it was a tough time proving the
Hmm.
finances because of depressed commodity prices, but they did what every consumer and consumer group and small business group is doing today. They find solutions. They created a cooperative. While it was
Hmm.
first chartered to serve Catholic parishioners, today it is Magnify Financial and one of the largest agricultural lending credit unions in the nation. And so that story, the culmination of that, and being an agricultural lender early in my career showed and told me that taking the solutions in our own hands as a community, as a group of people, there's something special in there that comes with a high level of responsibility, but it also comes with a high level of responsibility that no one else is going to give you the answers on these things. You've got to lean
Yeah.
in and be a part of it. I was very, very grateful that the leadership of that credit union back in the day was very prideful in being involved in the advocacy. We had a role in ensuring we met every local elected official, every
Hmm.
congressional representative. We helped them and drive them through parades locally. We also were probably the most rural and distant credit union from the Minnesota State Capitol in St. Paul, but
Yeah.
we prided ourselves in renting a school bus and loading up every employee at the credit union and taking them to the day at the Capitol. And you can do this stuff. You can add your voice. And those were
Yeah.
very inspirational moments for me. And then later worked for the State Employees Credit Union in St. Paul and
Yep.
recognizing that what works in the rural area can also work in the metro area and really help that credit union at the time become one of the first credit unions expanding its field of membership to
Hmm.
one of the underserved communities in inner city Minneapolis and St. Paul. And the success, the business success of that was all
Yep.
anchored on rolling up your sleeves and getting to know your communities, not in an accelerated manner, but in a manner that you really were authentic and you understood the community and the needs of the community, and then put
Hmm.
programs and products in place to make sure they were served. So I've seen it firsthand how it can be done. I see firsthand how public policy oftentimes can get in the way
Mhm.
of the real work credit unions need to do, and see firsthand in my daily work every single day that responsibility of ensuring the clarity and understanding of that intersection and removing the barriers. That is our responsibility
Yeah.
to make sure any new administration, any new Congress understands where our heart and minds are as cooperative credit unions and what public policy can do to remove those barriers.
What an incredible origin story.
Love
Thanks
that.
for sharing that, Troy. But we're going to come back to you in just a second. But I want to ask one last kind of big question very quickly with about league mergers, with the number of mergers happening, most recent LSU and
Virginia, yeah.
Virginia merger. Where do you see the future structure of the credit union leagues going from here?
Having traveled that journey, and I think it was 1998, becoming the CEO of the Oregon Credit Union League, and I've shared
Hmm.
earlier in this podcast the results of bringing the resources of these multi-state associations together. I've seen the results and the impact of the results firsthand. But every jurisdiction, every individual state, its stakeholders, just like credit unions are owned by their members, these associations are owned by the credit unions and are governed by a set of board of directors, and every credit union has a voice in that process. It's up to them to decide when and what they want to be and how they will execute this important role of advocacy.
Okay.
And if you heard anything in our podcast today, it's not only doing the grassroots and the advocacy, but it is also the implementation of programs to ensure we accelerate and maximize the impact that we make in our community.
Okay.
The housing programs that I talked about, the micro enterprise programs that we're driving in Washington, the Tucson housing program, those could not happen in our Go West environment without the combined resource of the credit unions across our 6 states.
Very good.
Okay. All right, Troy. Well, of course, we could talk to you for hours about all these topics, but let's officially move on to part 2 of our interview. This is also all about you. Are you ready?
Oh boy.
All right. So, well, my first question you kind of answered already. I was going to ask you, where are you from? What's your hometown? You said Minnesota. What's the name of the town, or what town is the farm closest to?
St. Martin, Minnesota. The
Okay.
population sign is 172 people.
Oh,
That's the
wow.
same number and the same sign that was there when I
Uh,
grew up. I was just
Yeah.
there a couple weeks ago visiting my parents.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And what was most interesting is a small rural Catholic farming
yeah.
community. One of the economic drivers in that community today is a company called RoboChopper. And again, the population sign of that town is only 172 people. RoboChopper was one of my first commercial loans that I underwrote and dispersed
Okay.
back in the day at my credit union. And today, that company is a publicly traded company. Today, that company is an employer of several hundreds of people and families. It's a major employer in the community. And I share that because of all we talked about here in advocacy and how relevant credit unions can be in driving the vitality of Main Street. That population sign of 172 people is
Uh-huh.
polished and bright and shiny. And I think credit unions can have that same sort of impact on any Main Street community across America.
Yeah.
Very cool. Troy, let me ask you, going back to your youth, what was your first summer or after school job?
The credit union.
Okay.
Okay.
So nothing
Yes.
before.
I joined the credit union as a student loan officer and then very quickly transitioned into a real estate processor and then became an operations supervisor in a tower line
Okay.
and then a branch manager and then opened up several new branches and new communities.
I mean, your DNA is just credit unions. That's incredible.
Well, you're lucky. You never had to, push
Yeah.
shopping carts around in a parking lot, or, scoop ice
Yeah.
cream or anything like what we all had to do, right? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's right.
Troy,
That's fun.
just I know you're very focused on work, obviously, but do you have anything non-work related, like a hidden talent, a hobby, or another type of a passion that you could share with us?
I started at the credit union at Thursday and was really excited. First day on the job was a Thursday. Second day on the job was
Hmm.
a Friday. About 4:30, quarter to five, I was packing up my desk, ready to punch out because it was 5 o'clock on a
Sure.
Friday. And then only then learned that, oh no, we're open till 8 p.m. on Friday night.
Oh,
And Natasha, that
okay.
is when my two worlds collided.
Okay.
I was packing up because I played guitar in a cover band and
Oh,
I was headed
nice.
out to a gig.
Great.
And it was that moment that my CEO of the credit union was probably as surprised as you are right now that Troy
Uh,
has this hidden talent. But
I knew there was something in there.
he said, you're going to need to make a decision. Those are great things to do. I still have and love music, but
Great.
there's this journey that every one of us travel, and when you make
yeah.
Yeah.
decisions in your professional career. And I continued to play in cover bands, but have a real love for music,
Great.
and that talent still.
Troy, what was the name of that band back then?
We went through various renditions of the band,
Uh-huh.
and in fact, I think some of the remnants of that band still might be doing cover gigs in Minnesota.
Oh,
Okay.
One of the biggest claims to fame, however, was we played for our band was the opening act on an outdoor music festival up in Minnesota.
oh,
And this, again, we'll put a date stamp on it, but
Okay.
we were the opening act at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, let me just say.
Okay.
And the artists who followed us were folks like Clay Walker, Martina McBride. And then there was an entire section of the classics: George Jones, Tammy Wynette,
Yeah.
Conway Twitty. The
Mhm.
headliner in the evening was Johnny Cash and the June Carter Cash family.
Oh, amazing.
And in Johnny Cash style, at the end of the night, as he
Yep.
was singing Ring of Fire, he invited all the musicians out from the day out
Oh
on
my
stage.
gosh.
wow.
And so I can say I have played guitar on stage with Johnny Cash.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's
Holy smokes.
incredible.
Is there a photo of this anywhere?
Probably somewhere, but digital photography was not a
Yeah,
thing
yeah,
back
yeah.
then.
It was a while ago.
That's amazing.
That is
That's
great.
amazing.
Sticking with music really quick, now I do want to know, what was the first album you ever bought or remember listening to?
Gosh, if you haven't figured out rural Minnesota,
Yep.
rural America, a cover band, of course, very influenced by country music and
Okay.
classic rock. And so take your selection of some of those old classic albums, and then the transition through the 70s and classic rock, the Eagles, and all really fun acoustic and well written, well orchestrated music.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay, Troy, final question for you today here. What is the last movie you watched, if you have time to watch TV and movies?
You just nailed it really well, Natasha. When the heck do you think Troy
I don't know.
has
On
time
a
to sit
on
on
the
the
airplane,
sofa
maybe? I
watching?
don't know. Airplane. We're probably working on the plane. I don't know.
Yeah, when I'm not plugged in, not doing any of these other things, I love the outdoors.
Okay.
You will
Great.
find me doing home improvement projects. You will find me doing a lot of hiking. That's a preference well over sitting down and watching.
Yeah, probably better. Yeah,
Very
being in front
good.
of a screen.
Healthy.
Got it. Okay. All right. Well, Troy Stang, CEO of the Go West Credit Union Association, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. We had a lot of fun.
Thanks, Troy.
Thank you.
All right. And to all of our listeners, thank you so much for downloading today's show. Please subscribe to Shared Accounts with CU Times and all of the normal podcast places. And please share the episodes with, your coworkers, your least favorite relatives. I don't know. Share it with everyone.
Sure. Yeah. And please feel free to rate us too. We love that. As always, thank you to our producer, Zach Nyheisel. Thanks, Zach. Join us again next week for a new episode of Shared Accounts with CU Times. Until then, thanks for listening.